All right, so don't bother with this one. Or do we, to make a point?
No, don't look at that one.
We say, hey.
No, this one.
Hey, everybody. My name's Ryan, and I'm part of the Church Collective, and we have something to share with you today. The world has gone all kinds of interesting for everybody. And what we're running into both at our church and in lots and lots of other churches is the need for streaming and the need for using social media as more than just an add-on. And what James and I wanted to do is just hop in here and kind of tell you about what we're doing at our church and maybe just give you some advice just for the use of social media. I think our church here, Shelter Cove Community Church in Modesto, has done a really good job utilizing social media, not just as a way to get attention and to get people to come into our church, but to just share the gospel and to connect with others.
Absolutely. I'd agree with that 100%. And so what we started to do when we were talking about the possibility that we might not have services for the weekend was bolstering the live stream, right? That's the first thing that we all jump to. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is you want to keep your engagement up with your church. You don't want to lose momentum in terms of whether it's people attending or just people being connected with your church. And so that's a really good reason to do a live stream. Another, which is going to be inescapable, and I promise if you haven't thought this through, your executive pastor has, is just the idea of giving. The church relies on giving, and I don't think we can ignore that as an aspect. I don't think it should be your primary driving factor, but it's for sure an aspect in making sure that you're still doing that connecting tissue via live stream. I don't know how much you'd agree with that.
Sure. Yeah. At our church, we've set up a very clean and easy way for people to give online. We've had it there. It's just becoming more and more prominent. And what we've actually just worked on today is creating like a video and kind of a plan for people who have never used our online giving system to be able to get a hang of it, to be able to use it, and to be able to continue to give online. It can feel kind of icky as a church to talk about giving and to talk about offering and even to debate whether or not to close a service and to have offering be a piece of that conversation. It's just, a lot of us don't like talking about that, but it is the reality. Giving and tithing and offering is how churches function. So it's not as simple as just saying, well, let's just not meet for 2 months and call it a day. We've got to find ways to continue to be engaged.
Right. And the other portion of that is try and remember that it's biblical. Your tithing, your offerings, there's biblical support behind that. And so, yeah, it feels icky. And I more than most feel super jaded about that. Sometimes it can be really easy to be cynical about the idea of giving and the church asking. But at the end of the day, it is a biblical concept of generosity, of tithing. And so you can kind of lean on that a little bit philosophically, just to help yourself kind of feel a little bit better about the fact that you're going to still be asking. And in fact, you're going to be leaning on people to make that switch to online giving now more than ever. And so what are some practical ways that we're doing that? You mentioned that video we're doing. I think we're trying to get that link out there on broadcast, right? So that's another step, is make sure your link to be able to give is prominent somewhere. Especially if you're going to talk about it in videos, have it linked in your posts. If you're posting on Facebook or Instagram, make sure it's easy to access. And as long as you're clear, people are going to find it. People are generally fairly smart, regardless of how much toilet paper Costco has.
Sure. So we're sitting in the broadcast room at our church. So James, maybe we don't have to get into all the details. Sure. You're probably like, that's not what my church looks like. We're here to help you. And I've already connected with a number of people. I'm sure you probably have too. There's a lot of churches who aren't meeting for like the first time ever this weekend. And they have to figure out the streaming thing just because they haven't done it. So this is cool. If you have access to this, you probably don't need us to train you how to do it. Otherwise, you wasted your money buying all this, not knowing how to use it. I don't know what you were doing. But if you haven't streamed before, James, talk to us a little bit about what can people do that haven't done this before?
Yeah. And so if you are, there's a couple of stages. If you haven't done this before and you're just now looking at it, I would say first things first is decide if you really actually want to go live. And so our church leadership had a discussion, and we decided we wanted to start putting something out daily, or at least more often, to communicate just what we were doing here, response plans to various things. And what we ended up deciding, in fact, was instead of going live with that, would be that we would produce it, that we would film it with a couple of different cameras, edit it, and then put it out as a premiere later on Facebook. And so if you don't have any live stream equipment at all, I would suggest for sure that as a viable option. In fact, I'll link it. We'll post it here so you can watch that video. I think it actually turned out really well.
Yeah, something that was really cool about what you said there. We set it up as a premiere on Facebook and on YouTube, which is something that a lot of people don't take advantage of.
Sure.
But when you're putting that video up on Facebook, it has an option to say, I want to publish this. For us, it was like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. So we put it up there, and it was about 8 hours earlier than that it came up, and people start getting notifications that Shelter Cove is going to go live. So when it comes out as a premiere, it basically plays as if it's live. And we had people commenting. We had a few members of our team hop in there and start talking in the comments as it was broadcasting.
And man, I thought that was super successful.
Yeah.
Like, we'd never really dabbled with that before, but people were watching live and they were throwing out like prayer emojis. It was a really cool thing that people got engaged with. And the beauty of the premiere thing is that you can have that video hang around afterwards.
Yep.
So that video was there for, it was still getting engagement days later, even after that premiere.
Yeah.
So that's for sure a way to go. I recommend if you have no live stream whatsoever, you can shoot things on your phone, or if you know somebody who has a camera, you can shoot things and then put it together and post it as a premiere. That's a super viable option. If you are tied to live stream and you want to go live with something, there's benefits for that. There's you can have it feel a little more kind of like church. I don't know what it is about live things that make it feel a little more churchy.
Sure.
I get it. Use your phone. Facebook on your phone. I mean, phones now are super viable cameras. You can go live straight from your phone. Get a nice little kind of tripod. Are you going live right now?
I'm not going. I'm just filming.
All right.
So just,
Phones have super nice cameras now, and so you can go live straight from your phone. Get a $10 tripod mount for your phone. Throw it on a $20 tripod from Best Buy, and all of a sudden you have a viable filming rig that you can use to live stream. Now, granted, that'll only be one camera,
right.
but it's something, and it's a simple solution. If you want to step up from that, you're starting to talk into a little more of this type of gear. So you're going to need a switcher, something to plug multiple cameras into. If you're looking at multi-camera, you're going to need a capture card for a computer, something to get SDI from your switcher into your computer. You're starting to talk a little more complicated there. Chances are, if you already have that kit, like Pastor Ryan said, you should really know how to use that kit if you have it.
Yeah.
But if you just have a camera, I'd say just shoot something and really explore that premiere option. Or if you're tied to that live stream, as I said, go for your phone. You can get some really effective live streams that way too. The whole point of this being to just keep that engagement with your church going forward, even if you're not meeting.
Yeah.
You don't want any drop off. You don't want to experience any people who are drifting away from church because you failed to engage them competently enough through the time where you weren't meeting as a church family. So that's the core thing at the bottom of this, is keep that engagement up however you're equipped to do it. There's options. Get creative. More importantly, just keep on plugging forward with the things that you're doing on an online forum.
Sure. I'd encourage you too, if you're especially not meeting during the weekend, this thing that we're going to be really trying to do is doing much more of this live, whether it's live or live feeling. We're going to do more video content. We're going to do more interaction socially throughout the week, because I mean, on the one side, people are going to want to engage with that. Life's kind of crazy right now, and a lot of people might be home more than normal, so they're going to be able to engage with us there. On the other side, from just the algorithm side on Instagram and Facebook, the fact that people are interacting with us is going to feed that content to them later when we put more and more of it out there. So it's a weird little kind of symbiotic balance that goes along with that. So I just encourage you to up your game for social. Don't just stick with like prayer posts that you create from some app. Like, just get on there, and like we were saying, at the end of the day, you can go live on your phone. I'd encourage you to do that. Have your pastor do that. If they can't meet at your church, if they call it their church, they're going to want to interact with you and your pastor and the people that are there. I don't think they're going to be so concerned about the quality.
Totally. And the thing is, you're going to want to keep providing value content. So the core of this, some people are, for right or for wrong, some people are showing up at church, and that's the only time in a week that they might be receiving anything in terms of a devotional or a spiritual kind of input. Now, obviously, people should be reading their Bibles, and we can teach that as much as we like. But the reality is that some people, most of what they're getting in their spiritual lives is on a Sunday. Now, that's a culture that obviously you can shift at another point, but all that to say that you really should be looking to feed your people during the week. You should be putting out devotional content. You should be trying to speak some truth and some wisdom, imparting the word during the week in times where your church might not be meeting. So that's another really important thing to think about is if not you, who's feeding your people, who's shepherding your flock.
Yeah, that's great. Worship team, take requests on social media, put a
sure.
question sticker on Instagram, do songs, and get just an acoustic set. We did in the video
Yeah.
James talked about earlier, just a handful of people on our staff came together and just did a little unplugged
Man,
worship thing. It was
people
great.
loved that.
Yeah.
We got some great response from that. I had one guy send an email saying, "Why was there worship? You you should have just gotten to the point." But you know what? It's biblical. In the Psalms, it tells us to sing, make a joyful noise to the Lord. And
Right.
you know what? We're going to do that, and we're going to take every opportunity to encourage others to do the same. So get together and do something. Get an acoustic guitar, film it, put it out there. You'll be surprised at the response you get from people.
Yeah. So how is your church engaging if you're not meeting on the weekend? What are you doing throughout the week? We would love to hear about it. Stick it in the comments below. And we're here to help. If you have any questions, leave a question. Biggest place would be over on Facebook, the Church Collective community. Get yourself in there. It's a great little group of people, and there's lots of informative just like stuff that comes out of everybody in there. And I know Facebook groups can get a little wild, but I'd like to think ours is pretty
Oh,
helpful.
it's a super cool group.
Good place to
And
be.
we're both active in there as well. So if
Yeah.
you have any live streaming questions specifically, ask away. We'd love to engage with you there.
Yeah. Hope this is helpful.